Hello, this is Bruce and welcome to my tutorial Cold and Dark to Taxi Ready on the Carenado Embraer 120 or the Brasilia Bravo 120. Right now obviously it's not cold and dark. This is what you'll see when you start up the aircraft, except there will be an alarm sounding, and all I've done so far is turn the alarm off with a left click right here. So we're going to then get to that cold and dark state by hitting Shift 7, selecting cold and dark, done. That puts us in this condition here. The parking brake is underneath the pilot's armrest here. It's in the up position, so the brake is on. I'm going to go ahead and look outside just briefly so you can see what the aircraft looks like. It's got the classic Carenado shine. If you press Shift 6 and the brakes are on, you can get the static elements like this to show up, and that's the brakes need to be on. And then also the passenger door and the baggage door can open through this means too. Or you can guess if you hit Shift E or Shift E2, the same thing is possible. I'm using P3D version 4.5, Ultimate Traffic Live. I'm using Chase Plane for the views. My NVIDIA card is a 1070 and my i5 is overclocked for those that are interested. This is a video that I do for myself as I've done for all the other ones. And I'm just sharing it with my sim community so that you could benefit too, I hope. And also interact with me a little bit. Tell me if you've noticed something, something insightful, helpful. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I always like to learn and grow. And I encourage you too to watch a YouTube video by an actual pilot in an actual aircraft like this. His name is Claase, C-L-A-A-S-E, and then type in EMB120 and you'll see about 5 videos, and they're all about the flows and all the technical things. He'll run you through all the tests as well that I'm not going to do. So here we go. Set parking brake, done. Then roll up here to the overhead, and we're just going to come down through column 1. This is already preset on normal. That's your electrical emergency switch. We're going to go ahead and turn the bus tie 1 and 2 to the on position. That'll be helpful later on. Make sure all of the generators, auxiliary and otherwise, are off. The battery is still off. We won't deal with anything in here quite yet. The emergency light is already armed by the cold and dark status that Embraer or the Carenado gave it. We'll just roll all the way past all of these until we get to the start ignition. We're going to go ahead and put these on auto early. We're going to skip the entire third section over to the fourth column. We'll put the propeller on cold, and then we'll just leave all that alone. Coming back now to the battery, and we'll turn the battery on. I'm going to stop that noisy alarm there with a click on that square. Okay, the power is on. Now at this point we can turn the rudder system on if we wanted to, as well as the anti-skid, but I prefer to leave the third column completely untouched until after the engines are started, and then and only will we start the electrical hydraulic pumps. So some people turn them on, some don't. And we've got this on cold, so we're good there. Passenger lights now, we're going to turn these on. We're going to turn the nav light on so people know that we're in here moving around. We've got an auxiliary battery switch right below the glare shield right here. Put it in the mid position to on. Fuel checks, since we're down looking in this direction, the fuel quantities are here, fuel flows are here. The FU is fuel used. If you press the function button, you see fuel remaining. If you want to reset the fuel used, you can just click that little white button there. I prefer to leave it on fuel remaining. And since we're down in this region of the aircraft, COM 1, COM 2, NAV 1, NAV 2, TCAS and ATC are interlinked. One changes the other. You can do it by clicking numbers in either case, or you can roll the knobs here and it'll affect the other one as well. Automatic direction finder, the knob will control those figures, or you can do it directly and then switch them like so. This is COM 2 also, so there's 2 of them. And any change down here is a change up there, and if you transfer it here, it transfers up there. Here's the ProLine 21. I'm not going to go into it. I've got a separate video on that already, and I'm not going to worry about it. And I do have the Flight 1 GTN 750 installed in this aircraft, and I will say something about that in a little while, because you may find yourself frustrated, as I was at first, as to where it went, because you already noticed the drop down over here to call it up is already missing. That tends to drop off the screen when you're doing your startup procedures with this aircraft, and it's happened in some other Carenado projects as well. The oxygen volume available is here, just to let you know that's where it's located in case you ever try and find it. Alright, backing up here now, we'll want to make sure that the farthest right fuel pump is on before we fire up the APU. we'll turn on the rotating beacon to let people know we're starting it. And then the APU, you turn it to on for 2 seconds, 1, 2, and then all the way up to start. This is where the audio in this video might get a little complicated because the APU doesn't silence when you put on when I press Q on the keyboard to silence the sounds. So I will try and speak clearly and above it all. When it gets to the RPMs of 95 in this green zone, you can go ahead and start the APU generator. So right now, there we go. We're going to then go down and turn on our radio switches, which theoretically should have been both off, but they leave the main one on for cold and dark for some reason. So I'll just put on the emergency switch on as well. So both of those should be up. Then we're going to go back up to the overhead and we'll look at the pneumatic air conditioning section, which is all down here. We're going to turn on the fans, both the front and the back, and also the gaspers above the passengers' heads here to auto. That at least gets some air moving for them. We'll turn on the inverters 1 and 2 now on the first column. This DC power indicator here, we're just going to roll it over to central bus APU generator at this point, since we're running the APU now. Okay, the APU bleed switch can be turned on after 3 minutes technically, maybe 2 minimum, but this is a sim, so we're just going to go ahead and turn it on now. What that does, when this is on, Pack 1 receives flow of air to it, but not Pack 2. And to get Pack 2 and Pack 1 on the bleed air together from the APU, you have to open up the cross bleed valve right here. The engine bleed valves here and here will leave off until we're about 12,000 or 10,000 feet elevation, and then we'll put it on the engine bleeds. What that does is it gives more power to the engines for takeoff and climb, and just let the APU bleed supply both packs. We can turn then the packs on low in each case. We'll turn the temperatures to auto. You could leave it on the attendant in the cabin, but there isn't one, so we'll just put it on auto, and then the temps can be at about mid 12 o'clock position. Windscreens on, smoke detection on. You can also turn on the TAT and the AOA, or the angle of attack, and the windshield for that, and we'll get to the other issues a little bit later. You don't have to worry about the EFIS control panel, the electronic flight information system. That is located, and I'll get rid of the yokes to do this, just by clicking on the base, or you can click on the top. It's this panel right here. You don't have to do anything with it, just leave it alone. But just curiosity's sake, if you're a learner, VOR course deviation, it's on angular now. When you're trying to intercept a VOR radial or ILS, you notice that this line always starts to creep in. If it's on angular, it shows you the degrees to which you're off that line that you intend to intercept. If you put it on linear down at the bottom, that means it tells you how far away you are from that intercept line, which is not nearly as helpful as it would be if it was on angular. So just leave that one on angular. Before we start the engines, we want to make sure the flight director and the autopilot are off, and they are. And by the way, Shift 2 calls up the autopilot, which is on the console. This is yaw, autopilot, smooth ride, half angled on the bank. This is for vertical speed, up or down. If you want to snap the heading of your heading bug here to the nose of the aircraft, just left click it. It jumps right to that point. Same thing for VOR1, VOR2, Course 1, Course 2. The nav datas, you can experiment with those, but that's time to go, ground speed, etc. off. Courses, that's the automatic direction finder there, and then that be Copilot. Here's the timer, so it's run, stop, reset. Those all work just fine. And we got the HSI arc and map features here, and those are also repeated down here in this section here, except that with the course actuator, which here would say nav1, nav2, GPS, I meant to say they were the same. So all their decision height can be set here as it could be here, and that shows up numerically up there. So DIM works. Course pre here is your VOR2, and BRG is your bearing for your automatic direction finder. If you set the altitude at any point, the arm comes on, and when you click autopilot after you're about 400 feet above ground level and stable flight, you click that heading, and then you click like this, and then when you hit the autopilot, it will level off on whatever altitude it is that has been selected by yourself. Okay, Shift 2 gets rid of that, and Shift 2 is a hugely valuable feature to remember as you're flying, because that's how you're going to change your course directions and stuff. Also note here, when the autopilot arrow is down, it means I am in control in the pilot's position. If you click it and the arrow's to the right, that means the co-pilot is in charge of the autopilot. So we'll just have that left down. Okay, I think we're at the point now where we can get those engines started. We've discussed several things: nav, radios, TCAS, ATC. I'll go back to the radar over here a little bit later on. Power levers are at ground. We need to get the gust locks off with a left click as well. Condition levers are still at fuel cutoff. The little red levers are below there and at the feathered position. Trims, don't worry about those. The only thing you want to fiddle with is the elevators here, and leave that about 3. You can set up the Pro line or your Flight 1 GTN if you wish. What we're going to do now is get those engines started. So make sure the doors are closed. There's no annunciators lit up here. It's all dark. The beacon is on. All fuel pumps now can be turned to auto or on, so we'll click all 3 of those to come on with the 4th one. The packs need to be turned off, like so. The radio master switches now need to be turned off, so we'll click those off like this. The EECs, that's computer generated based on airflow and fuel. It adjusts the fuel flow with the prop RPMs over 25 and all that. If you run out of, if your engine quits, for instance, this is an assist. It's got 4 settings: manual, which is what needs to be on when you start it, and then takeoff, climb, and cruise. And on the modality of your flight, you'll want to adjust those as you move along. All right, how do we get the engine started? Okay, let's start with engine number 2. We're just going to click on, going to come down here, and we're going to watch this window right there. I'm going to take the sound dampening off for a second. Okay, now it won't go past 12. When it gets to about 11, what we can do then is we take the engine number 2 off the feather and we open up the fuel valve. Yeah, I've got the sound down as much as I can. That APU is just a monster. It will never quiet down. Anyway, we'll get these going. This is your temp T6. This is your torque. This is the props RPMs, the NP. This is NH, NL. It's a high and low pressure. It's equivalent to the N2, N1 that maybe most of us are more familiar with. When the engine is all fired up and engaged, this goes to the opposition, and we'll just do the same thing for the left. Notice it'll run up to about 10 or 11. I'll unfeather it and hit the fuel valve. So right about now, we'll unfeather it and open the fuel valve. And that should take care of that. Then on the overhead, we'll turn on the generators like this, and the auxiliaries as well. We'll leave all the APU settings as they were. The fuel we'll leave on automatic. The auto feather we can now turn on in the 2nd column. And the EECs we can turn to takeoff at this point. Ice protection is needed. The pitos plus auxiliary can be turned on, like so. We'll turn on the rudders. We'll turn on the anti-skids, and because we have engines running, we'll put our hydraulics with the electric power pumps there on auto. And that takes care of a good many things, and then we'll get the radios back on as well. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to run through a few quick things before we go any farther. Takeoff, V1 is about 115, VR is 125, rotate at 7 degrees. Positive rate of climb, get the gear up at 400 feet, get the autopilot on. V2 plus 20 is flaps up. I have a hard time finding the information exactly on what the V2s might be. Plus 20. And the speed bugs here, I've never been able to move them as well. I mean, you can finger them and fiddle and stuff, but I can't get them to move. Maybe somebody else can inform me on that. You get the auto feather off after you've taken off. You climb at 1,800 feet per minute or 180 knots up to 10,000 feet. Then you can switch the packs from the APU bleed to the engine bleeds, and there's a process for that. You turn off pack 2, then you turn off the cross bleed, then you turn on the engine bleed on the 2nd, and then you open up pack 2 again, and now you got the pack 2 running on the engine bleed. Then you, with the cross bleed left off, you turn off pack 1, turn off the APU bleed on the 2nd column at the top, then turn it on the engine bleed, and then turn pack 1 back on, and now both packs are running on engine bleeds. And you'll then climb with the power levers through to 12,000 feet at least, with the power levers at 90 to 100 RPM Anytime you move a condition lever, turn the prop sync off, and when you're done, put the prop sync on. And if you want to turn off the APU, the stop button really doesn't seem to work. This one, I just turn it off, and then these off. Just would guess that'd be the best thing to do. Cruise is 180 or speed stable, and just keep an eye on fuel remaining. Descents are at 2,000 feet per minute, generally speaking, with the power levers about 45%, and prop RPM about 80%. And what else can we say? Get the APU back on at 10,000 and get the bleeds back on to the APU's status. Landing leg, base leg rather, is 15 degrees of flaps, and then on when you're dot below glide slope 25, it's discretionary to use 45, but the angle is very steep. Generally speaking, your VREFs are going to be between 115 and 125 with flaps 25. 115 if you're light, 125 if you're heavy. And other than that, I think I just want to now explain the radar feature just briefly, and then we'll quit. This is a nice feature. The traffic does work. You can set the distances with these arrow buttons here, and you can see the numbers change. So I'll leave it at 10 for now. Turn the traffic off. When you turn the traffic off, you get this little bar. When you click the soft key next to it, you can see you got VOR 1, 2, and LORAN, or Long Range Navigation 1. I don't use LORAN. If you set these two and you want to keep them, the enter is over here, radar nav. Click that. Now you can see that they're both listed, and you'll see the radials there too as you've set them in. You can get rid of them in the same way. Just go to that, 1, 2, and click, like so. Now they're gone. So again, traffic, radar. This one here, you can read right here, it's off nav. Now it's just nav. Now it's all off. Now it's off nav. That, I guess, is weather. So there we go, off nav. That's what we're looking for right there, I think. Yeah, there we go. For some reason it says off nav, but it's on. These three don't work. These three don't work. We've already explained that. Here's the modes. Doesn't seem to do much different, does it? Target highlights, don't worry about it. Gain, don't worry about it. Hold screen, don't worry about it. Tilt, you could go through the motions. You're climbing, you go up. Descending, you want it down so you can see above or below for TCAS. Range is here. There's really not much else to say. I think that's got it covered. If you've got any questions or comments, please let me know. Thanks so much. Take care. Have fun. Bye-bye.